What if I told you that sometimes the most desperate decision of your life could lead you straight to your destiny? We're often told that money can't buy happiness, and it certainly can't buy love. But what if, just once, it could buy you a chance? This is a story that challenges everything we think we know about wealth, lies, and the true nature of the heart. It's about a situation so impossible, so tangled in secrets, you won't be able to look away. This is the story of Quinn Cox, a kind-hearted librarian whose world is built on the quiet magic of books, but whose bank account is running on empty. And it's the story of Eric Owens, a powerful, elusive CEO who lives in a glass tower, surrounded by people who only want his fortune. She feels invisible, he feels seen for all the wrong reasons. A single, desperate choice brings their two worlds crashing together to save face at a family wedding. Quinn does the unthinkable and hires a date online. She thinks she's getting a simple boyfriend for hire, a temporary solution to a very personal problem. But here is the plot twist that changes everything. The handsome stranger she hires turns out to be the CEO himself, going undercover to escape his own life. The arrangement was supposed to be fake, a simple transaction. But their connection becomes shockingly real. The biggest surprise isn't his secret identity, it's what happens when the charade is over. Now he wants a real refund, and what he's demanding in return is her heart. Get ready for an emotional, heart-aching love story that explores what happens when a mistaken identity leads to true love. We'll dive deep into a world of secrets, redemption, and the powerful idea that sometimes you have to lose everything to find what you're truly looking for. This is a story that will make you question what's real, what's fake, and whether two people from opposite worlds can truly find a happily ever after. And now, a special invitation to you as you join us. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, so we can see how far our story has reached. And if you're already feeling that this story will touch your heart, don't forget to like the video, follow our channel so you don't miss a single detail, and share it with someone who you know loves a love story full of surprises. Let's begin. Well, isn't that just the way the cookie crumbles? Quinn Cox found herself in a real pickle, a classic case of needing to save face. Her picture-perfect cousin was getting hitched, and the entire family, with all their nosy questions, would be there. Showing up alone wasn't an option, not this time. It felt like her whole life was under a microscope, and she needed a little bit of a plot twist to change the narrative, you know? A little bit of breathing room. So she cooked up a plan, a wild, desperate, and slightly crazy plan. She decided to find a boyfriend for hire. It sounded like something out of a movie, a temporary solution to a deeply personal problem. In her heart, she knew it was a long shot, but what else could she do? This was more than just a date, it was a shield, a handsome stranger to stand by her side and smile. Just for one night. That's all she wanted. The irony wasn't lost on her. Here she was, a woman who adored a genuine love story, literally paying for a fake one. But desperate times call for desperate measures, right? She scrolled through online ads, her finger hovering over the confirm button. It was a huge risk, a step into a world she knew nothing about. This secret arrangement felt both thrilling and terrifying, a gamble with her pride and her carefully guarded heart. It was a plan born of pure necessity. And then she found him. His profile was simple, yet there was something powerful in his gaze, even through a screen. He called himself E and promised discretion and professionalism. He seemed like the perfect candidate to play the part. Little did she know, this decision was about to set in motion a chain of events so unexpected, it felt like destiny itself was playing a hand. This was no ordinary date for hire, this was something else entirely. The man she hired, this handsome stranger, was none other than the city's most powerful and elusive CEO, Eric Owens. But she didn't know that, not yet. To her, he was just her boyfriend for hire, a temporary fix. For him, this was a secret mission of his own, a strange attempt to find something real in a life filled with fakery. Their paths were about to cross in the most dramatic way possible. The stage was set for the wedding. Quinn was armed with her hired date, ready to face her family. She thought she had everything under control, that her little secret was safe. She couldn't have been more wrong. This was not just a simple arrangement, it was the beginning of an emotional journey, an unexpected love story that would challenge everything they both believed about themselves and the world. A major surprise was just around the corner. Let's rewind a bit and talk about Quinn Cox. She wasn't a woman of grand ambitions or flashy desires. Her world was built from the quiet rustle of turning pages and the comforting scent of old books. As a kind-hearted librarian, she found joy in simple things, struggling to make ends meet, but never losing her gentle spirit. Life wasn't always easy, but her heart was full, and that's what mattered to her. She believed in the quiet power of stories. One evening, buried under a mountain of bills, the pressure felt heavier than usual. It was in that moment of quiet desperation that she stumbled upon an online ad for a professional date. The idea of a boyfriend for hire was so foreign, so laughably absurd, it should have been easy to dismiss. But it wasn't. The thought planted a seed, a risky little idea in her otherwise orderly life. Could she really do something so bold? She weighed her options, which, let's be honest, were few and far between. The wedding was looming, a social guillotine ready to drop. Taking this risk felt like a betrayal of her own values, yet it also felt like her only escape. This decision wasn't about finding romance, it was a strategic move, a self-preservation tactic. She decided to take the leap, a small act of rebellion against the circumstances that cornered her. It was a secret she'd have to keep close. This choice was a huge plot twist in the otherwise predictable narrative of her life. She, Quinn Cox, the woman who lived by the Dewey Decimal System, was about to engage in a transaction of mistaken identity. The emotional weight of the decision was immense, a mixture of shame and a strange, liberating thrill. She was authoring a new, unexpected chapter for herself, one that was completely off-script and filled with uncertainty. It was a heart-aching and desperate gamble. Her finger trembled as she clicked the link, her heart pounding a nervous rhythm against her ribs. This single action felt like a point of no return. She was stepping out of the comfortable, predictable aisles of her library and into the chaotic, unknown marketplace of human connection for hire. It was a powerful moment of agency for a woman who often felt powerless against the tide of her financial struggles. She was taking control in her own strange way. And so, the quiet librarian began her search, looking for a temporary shield in human form. She wasn't looking for a hero or a savior, just someone to help her through a single, challenging day. She had no idea that this one, seemingly small decision was her first step toward a collision with destiny, a rendezvous with a man whose life was the complete opposite of her own. The stage for an unexpected love was being set. Now let's flip the coin and look at Eric Owens. From the outside, the man had it all. As the city's most powerful CEO, he lived in a world of glass towers, Nina-figure deals, and suffocating expectations. But honestly, he was drowning in it. Every handshake felt transactional. Every smile seemed to have a price tag. He was disillusioned with the women in his circle who looked at him and saw not a man, but a walking, talking vault of opportunities. He was tired of the game, tired of the superficiality, the endless parade of people who wanted a piece of his empire, but had no interest in the man who built it. In a moment of sheer frustration, a radical idea sparked. What if he could strip away the CEO label? What if he could just be a guy? This desire for something genuine, something real, pushed him toward an unconventional solution. A secret mission to find an authentic human connection. That's when he discovered the app, the very same one Quinn was scrolling through. He went undercover, creating a sparse, anonymous profile. No mention of his fortune, no hint of his powerful status. It was a brilliant, if not slightly deceptive, act of mistaken identity by his own design. He wasn't looking for love, not really. He was conducting an experiment, a personal quest to see if he could find one person who liked him for him. This boyfriend for hire scheme became his secret escape. It was a plot twist in his own tightly managed life, a way to break free from the golden cage he had built for himself. The irony was rich. A man who could have anyone was paying to be chosen by someone who had no idea who he was. It was a bizarre, emotional gamble, but one his heart told him he needed to take. He craved a heart-aching connection, free of ulterior motives. So when the request from a quiet librarian named Quinn Cox came through, it felt different. There was a sincerity in her message, a lack of pretense that caught his attention immediately. She wasn't looking for a whirlwind romance or a sugar daddy, just a respectable companion for a family event. For the first time in a long time, Eric felt a flicker of something real, a spark of genuine human interaction that wasn't tainted by his wealth. He accepted the job, this powerful CEO ready to play the hired date. He was intrigued, curious about the woman who wanted to hire a man for an evening instead of chasing after the city's most eligible bachelor. He had no idea this arrangement, this simple contract, was the first step toward a complicated and unexpected love story that would force him to confront the man he had become. Destiny had its own plans for them. Their first Detethie wedding was a scene straight out of a novel. Eric, accustomed to high-stakes boardrooms and lavish galas, found himself in a modest church hall, a world away from his own. He played his part perfectly, the attentive boyfriend, but behind his calm exterior, he was completely captivated. Quinn Cox was nothing like the women he knew. There was a simple, unassuming grace about her that was utterly disarming. A genuine kindness shone from her. He watched her interact with her family, her gentle words and easy laughter, a stark contrast to the calculated charm he was used to. The most stunning surprise for Eric, however, was her complete and total lack of interest in his financial status or what she perceived his status to be. She asked him about his favorite books, his dreams, his thoughts on the world. Not once did she ask what he did for a living or what kind of car he drove. It was a profound plot twist for his jaded heart. For years, his identity had been fused. With his title CEO, he wasn't Eric Owens, the man. He was Eric Owens, the billionaire. But with Quinn, he wasn't a powerful figure. He was just her hired date. And for the first time, it felt like enough. It felt like more than enough. This experience was becoming deeply emotional for him, stirring feelings he had long since buried. He was stunned by her simple kindness. She worried if he was comfortable, if he needed anything, if he was having an okay time. She treated him not as a service she had paid for, but as a person. Her heart was so open, so transparently good. It was almost painful for him to witness, knowing the secret he was keeping. This mistaken identity was allowing him to see a purity he thought no longer existed. This was a truly heart-aching encounter. This entire boyfriend for hire scenario was supposed to be a detached experiment, a way for him to observe authenticity from a safe distance. But he wasn't detached. He was leaning in, hanging on her every word, feeling a connection that was more real than any had ever had. The foundation of a true love story was being laid right there, amidst the pastel decorations and awkward family dances, and he was the only one who knew the full story. As the evening went on, Eric realized the danger of his game. He was developing feelings real and powerful for a woman who had no idea who he truly was. She was falling for the simple man he was pretending to be, not the CEO he actually was. The secret between them was no longer just a detail of their arrangement. It was becoming a chasm, one that might be impossible to cross later on. The reception was in full swing when the sharks began to circle. A few of Eric's wealthy friends, who happened to be at the same upscale venue for a different event, spotted him. They swaggered over, their eyes dripping with condescension as they took in the scene the powerful CEO, Eric Owens, a man they knew from magazine covers, standing next to a woman in a simple, elegant butler's diny dress. Their smirks were sharp enough to cut glass. "Eric, darling, what a surprise to see you here," one of them purred, her gaze raking over Quinn from head to toe. They immediately began to mock Quinn's simple dress, and upon learning she was a librarian, their amusement turned to outright disdain. "A librarian? How quaint," another sneered, the word hanging in the air like a bad smell. They were trying to belittle her, to put her in her place and remind Eric of the world he belonged to. But Quinn didn't crumble. She didn't get defensive or flustered. Instead, she handled their condescension with a quiet grace that left Eric speechless. She simply smiled, a small, genuine smile, and said, "Yes, I love my job. It's a privilege to be surrounded by stories all day." She didn't engage in their game or stoop to their level. She just was. And in her simple authenticity, she was more powerful than any of them. Eric watched the exchange, a storm of emotions brewing inside him. He felt a surge of protective anger towards his so-called friends, but what he felt more intensely was admiration for Quinn. Her strength wasn't loud or aggressive, was a deep, unshakable sense of self-worth that their petty insults couldn't touch. Her character shone so brightly in that moment, and his heart ached with a feeling he couldn't quite name. It was a heart-aching display of integrity. This was a major plot twist he hadn't anticipated. He had brought her into this situation, and his world was the one spitting venom at her. Yet, she was the one handling it with more class and dignity than anyone he knew. It was a humbling, emotional moment for the CEO, who was used to people cowering before him. Quinn Cox didn't cower. She stood her ground without ever raising her voice, and in doing so, she won a battle he didn't even know they were fighting. The encounter solidified something in Eric's mind. This wasn't just a fling or an experiment anymore. The feelings he had for Quinn were real, and they were growing deeper by the second. His secret felt heavier than ever, a ticking time bomb threatening to destroy this beautiful, unexpected love that was blooming between them. He was impressed, completely and utterly impressed, by the librarian with the quiet strength and the genuine heart. As the days turned into weeks, the lines of their arrangement began to blur. The boyfriend-for-hire contract was technically over, but they kept seeing each other. A coffee here, a walk in the park there. For Quinn, the man she knew as E was becoming an essential part of her life. He was kind, attentive, and he truly listened in a way no one ever had before. She was falling hard and fast for the man she believed him to be. She was beginning to develop real feelings, the kind that sneak up on you and take hold of your heart before you even realize it. Every conversation, every shared laugh, felt like another thread weaving them closer together. This was no longer a business transaction in her mind. It was the beginning of a real love story, the kind she'd only ever read about in books. Her heart, so long guarded, was opening up to him completely. Of course, she was blissfully unaware that his entire life was a well-guarded secret. She cherished the simplicity of their time together, believing he was a man of modest means, just like her. She loved that he seemed unimpressed by wealth and status, a quality that made him even more attractive in her eyes. It was a classic case of mistaken identity, and she was at the center of it, falling in love with a carefully constructed fiction. This ignorance was both a blessing and a curse. It allowed her feelings to grow pure and untainted by the knowledge of his immense power and fortune. Her love was for the man, not the CEO, but it also meant that her heart was being set up for a devastating fall. An emotional hurricane was gathering just over the horizon, and she was standing right in its path. with no idea of the plot twist that was about to unravel her world. Every time he'd cancel a date at the last minute with a vague excuse, she'd feel a pang of disappointment, but would quickly forgive him, assuming he had a demanding but ordinary job. She had no idea he was putting out corporate fires or negotiating multi-million-dollar deals. His secret life ran parallel to theirs, a powerful, unseen current that was destined to eventually sweep their fragile relationship away. It was a heart-aching and tragic irony. Quinn Cox was living in a beautiful, fragile bubble, cherishing an unexpected love that felt like destiny. She believed she had finally found her person, someone who saw her and valued her for who she was. The surprise that awaited her was not a happy one. The truth, when it came, would not feel like a romantic revelation. It would feel like a betrayal, a deep and painful deception that would threaten to shatter her faith in everything she thought was real. The moment of truth arrived not with a confession, but with the glossy cover of a magazine. Quinn was at a downtown newsstand, grabbing a coffee on her way to the library, when her eyes caught a familiar face. There he was. Not the kind, simple man she was falling for, but Eric Owens, the powerful CEO, staring back at her from the cover of Forbes. The headline screamed Eric Owens, the billionaire who rebuilt the city's skyline. Her world stopped spinning. The coffee cup slipped from her hand, shattering on the pavement as the truth crashed down on her with the force of a physical blow. It wasn't just a surprise, it was a complete detonation of her reality. Every memory, every shared moment, every sweet word was instantly recast in a new, horrifying light. The man she had been pouring her heart out to wasn't real. He was a character, a role played by a billionaire. A wave of humiliation, so hot and intense it made her dizzy, washed over her. She felt like the world's biggest fool. The boyfriend for hire she'd secretly arranged, the man she thought was her equal, was one of the richest men on the planet. Their entire relationship, which felt so special and heart-aching to her, was a lie. A game, and she had been the unsuspecting pawn. The plot twist was so cruel, it felt like a cosmic joke at her expense. The sense of deception was suffocating. His vague excuses, his simple life fight, was all part of an elaborate act. He hadn't been slumming it with her, he had been a tourist in her life, observing her like a specimen in a jar. The mistaken identity was no longer a funny little secret, it was a deep and painful wound. The emotional betrayal cut deeper than any financial disparity ever could. Her heart felt like it had been ripped in two. She bought the magazine, her hands shaking as she paid. She needed proof, she needed to see it in black and white, even though she knew in her gut it was true. This powerful man, this CEO, had deceived her in the most intimate way possible. He had taken her genuine, developing feelings and treated them like a disposable commodity. He hadn't just kept a secret, he had manufactured a fantasy and let her live in it. Heartbroken and feeling utterly deceived, Quinn walked away from the newsstand, the shattered pieces of her coffee cup mirroring the shattered state of her trust. The love story she thought she was living was a fraud. Now there was only one thing left to do. She had to confront him. She had to face the man who had played with her heart and end this charade once and for all. The confrontation was inevitable. The confrontation was as raw and painful as she had imagined. Quinn didn't call or text. She went straight to his office building, a gleaming monument to the power and wealth he had hidden from her. She rode the private elevator to the top floor, the magazine clutched in her hand like a weapon. When she burst into his opulent office, Eric Owens, the CEO, looked up from his desk, the surprise on his face quickly turning to dread. He knew, instantly, that the game was up. Heartbroken and shaking with a quiet rage, she threw the magazine onto his desk. "I suppose I should congratulate you, Mr. Owens," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "It must have been quite an amusing project for you." "My undercover summer as a regular guy," Was it research for a new business venture? Every word was laced with the agony of his betrayal. She wasn't just hurt, she felt profoundly humiliated, as if her life had been a joke to him. She ended their arrangement right then and there, cutting through the silence with her decision. "We're done," she stated, the words feeling both final and devastating. Whatever this was, it's over. She told him plainly that she couldn't be bought, that his world of lies and secrets was a place she wanted no part of. Her integrity, her heart, was not for sale. It was a powerful, emotional declaration of her self-worth, even as she was falling apart inside. Eric tried to explain, to stammer out apologies, but his words were empty to her. "Quinn, it wasn't like that," he began, but she held up a hand to stop him. "Don't," she warned. "Don't you dare try to justify this. You let me fall for a man who doesn't even exist." The pain of the mistaken identity, of loving a ghost, was too much to bear. Her true love had been for a fiction he created, and that was a wound that words couldn't heal. This wasn't a romantic plot twist, it was a brutal end. She wanted nothing to do with his world of lies, with the man who thought it was acceptable to build a relationship on such a massive deception. She told him that he, the powerful CEO, had everything money could buy, but he would never have her. He would never have her trust or her respect. She couldn't be a part of his life, not when its very foundation was a secret he kept from her. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Eric Owens standing alone in his vast, empty office with the evidence of his deceit lying between them. She left behind the man who had broken her heart, closing the door on their impossible love story. She had to protect herself, to reclaim her dignity from the wreckage of his lies. She was choosing herself over the fantasy he had sold her. The silence in his office after she left was deafening. For the first time, Eric Owens felt the true weight of his actions. The plot twist he had initiated for his own selfish reasons had backfired spectacularly, and the consequences were devastating. He looked around at his empire, at the symbols of his success, and they all felt hollow, meaningless. He had everything he thought he wanted, but he had just lost the only thing that felt real. He realized in that gut-wrenching moment that he had lost the only authentic person in his life. Quinn, with her quiet grace and her genuine heart, was a treasure he had stumbled upon and then carelessly destroyed. His deception, his stupid, well-intentioned secret, had cost him the one connection that wasn't about him being a CEO. She had seen the man, not the money, and he had thrown it all away with his lies. A powerful, desperate need for redemption surged through him. This couldn't be the end of their story. He couldn't let her walk away believing she was just a game to him. He knew, with a certainty that shook him to his core, that he was in love with her. A true love, not for the character she fell for, but for the incredible woman she was. He had to prove it to her, no matter what it took. And so, Eric Owens, the man who commanded boardrooms and moved markets, began a new campaign. This one wasn't for market share or a corporate takeover. It was a relentless pursuit to win back Quinn's trust. It was the most important deal of his life, and the stakes were not financially, were deeply emotional. He had to bridge the chasm his lies had created and show her the real man behind the CEO title. He knew it wouldn't be easy. He had shattered her trust, the very foundation of any relationship. She had made it clear she wanted nothing to do with him or his world, but he was a man who didn't give up. He would use all of his resources, all of his power, not to buy her back, but to earn her back. This was the beginning of his true mission. A heart-aching quest to mend a broken heart's and his own. The chase was on. Not a chase for power or money, but for forgiveness. He had to break down the walls she had rightfully put up. He needed to show her that his feelings were not part of the lie, that the unexpected love he found with her was the most real thing in his life. The path to redemption would be long and arduous, but for the chance to win back her heart, he was prepared to do anything. Eric's first move was predictably that of a CEO. He thought he could solve the problem the way he solved every other problem with money. He began to send extravagant gifts to the library where Quinn worked. First, it was a rare first edition collection of classic novels worth a small fortune. The next day, it was a state-of-the-art computer system for the library's catalog, followed by a mountain of flowers that barely fit through the door. But Quinn was unmoved. In fact, his grand gestures only solidified her resolve. She rejected every single one. The rare books were politely sent back via courier. The delivery of the computers was refused. The flowers were donated to a local hospital without a second thought. She was sending him a clear, powerful message his money held no power over her. Her heart could not be bought, and she refused to let him treat her like a business acquisition. Each rejection was a small, sharp blow to Eric's ego, but it also filled him with a strange sense of admiration. He was so used to his wealth being a master key that could unlock any door. Quinn's refusal to be swayed by it was a testament to her incredible integrity. It was a plot twist for his strategy. The very tool he used to control his world was utterly useless in winning back the person who mattered most. He was trying to show her he cared, but he was speaking the wrong language. He was speaking the language of a CEO, of transactions and grand, impersonal gestures. She was listening for the language of the heart, of sincerity and genuine remorse. His extravagant gifts weren't a sign of his love to her. They were just another reminder of the vast, deceptive world he came from and the secret he had kept. This back and forth became an emotional chess match. He would send a gift, and she would reject it, each move reinforcing her stance. She wasn't being cruel, she was being consistent. She was teaching him a lesson he desperately needed to learn, that the most valuable things in life, like trust and a true love story, have no price tag. His attempts at a grand monetary redemption were failing spectacularly. Eric finally began to understand. He couldn't fix this from his ivory tower. He couldn't send emissaries or expensive offerings to do his work for him. If he truly wanted to win her back, to even have a chance at earning her forgiveness, he would have to do something he hadn't done in a very long time. He would have to step out of his world and into hers, not as a powerful benefactor, but as a humble man. Realizing his gifts were a spectacular failure, Eric changed his strategy completely. He couldn't buy his way back into her life, so he would have to work his way back in. One sunny afternoon, he did something that stunned Quinn and the entire library staff. He showed up, not in a tailored suit with an entourage, but in jeans and a simple shirt, and he asked if they needed any volunteers. He wasn't there as a CEO. He was there to work. At first, Quinn was furious. She saw it as another ploy, a public spectacle designed to manipulate her. She told him to leave, that they didn't need his help. But Eric didn't argue. He just quietly picked up a stack of misplaced books and started sorting them onto a cart, his movements clumsy, but his intention clear. He wasn't leaving. He was there to do simple tasks, anything to just be near her. So began the most unexpected chapter of their story. The powerful CEO, a man who managed a multi-billion-dollar empire, spent his afternoons reshelving books, cleaning dusty shelves, and running the book drop cart. He did it without complaint, without any expectation of praise. He was doing it simply to be in her orbit, to prove with his actions, not his wallet, that his intentions were genuine. It was a humble, heart-aching path to redemption. Quinn watched him from a distance, her heart a tangled mess of conflicting emotions. It was a bizarre plot twist to see this titan of industry struggling to master the Dewey Decimal System. Part of her was still angry, still deeply hurt by his secret. But another part of her couldn't ignore what she was seeing: a man stripping away his power and privilege, all for the chance to be in the same room with her. His presence created a quiet storm in the library. He never tried to force a conversation about what happened. Instead, he used his actions to speak for him. He was showing her, not telling her, that he was willing to do the grunt work, to be small and unimportant, if it meant he could breathe the same air she did. It was a silent, emotional apology, offered up in hours of tedious, unpaid labor. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, his quiet persistence began to chip away at the walls around her heart. She was seeing a side of Eric Owens that no magazine cover could ever capture. Not the powerful CEO, not the deceptive boyfriend for hire, but a man, willing to humble himself in a profound way. He wasn't trying to fix things with a grand gesture, but with 1,000 small, sincere ones. And that, she had to admit, was surprisingly hard to ignore. As Eric continued his quiet penance among the bookshelves, Quinn started to see beyond the CEO and the lie. In the hushed aisles of the library, stripped of his power suits and corporate armor, a different man emerged. She saw a man who was often lonely, despite the immense power he wielded. She noticed the way his eyes would light up when he talked. About a book had just reshelved, a simple joy that seemed foreign to the billionaire persona. She began to see a different side of Eric, a man who was tired of his gilded cage and genuinely valued her perspective on life. He'd ask her questions, not about business or strategy, but about her thoughts on happiness, on purpose, on what makes a story good. He wasn't just passing the time, he was seeking her wisdom, the quiet, profound insights of a kind-hearted librarian who saw the world in a way he never had. This wasn't a plot twist, it was a slow, emotional unfolding. The library became their neutral ground, a place where their two vastly different worlds could meet. He wasn't a powerful man trying to win over a simple woman. They were just Eric and Quinn, two people talking amongst books, sharing pieces of their true selves. He was showing her the man behind the secret, the vulnerable heart he had been so afraid to reveal. She realized that his time with her, even when it was based on a lie, had been a desperate search for authenticity. He was a man who, despite his power, felt completely powerless to form a genuine connection. It didn't excuse his deception, but it did make it more human. It was a heart-aching revelation, seeing the deep-seated loneliness that drove him to create the whole boyfriend for hire charade in the first place. Their conversations became the highlight of his day, a lifeline back to a part of himself he thought had lost. He confessed that her view of the world, and not measured in profit margins, but in kindness and connection, was something he desperately needed. He wasn't just pursuing her for redemption, he was pursuing her because she made him a better man. She was his compass, pointing him toward a more meaningful existence. And so, an unexpected love began to rebloom, this time rooted in a fragile, tentative truth. Quinn's heart, though still bruised, couldn't deny the change she was witnessing. The man volunteering at her library wasn't the billionaire from the magazine cover. He was someone far more complex, someone lonely and searching. And for the second time, against all her better judgment, she felt herself being drawn to him, this time with her eyes wide open. Just as a fragile truce was beginning to form between them, Eric's past came roaring back. An old business rival, a man named Marcus Thorne, who despised Eric for a past corporate defeat, saw an opportunity for revenge. Thorne had heard whispers of the powerful CEO spending his days at a public library, and after some digging, uncovered the story of Quinn. He saw her as the perfect weapon to humiliate Eric publicly. At a high-profile charity auction, Thorne cornered Eric and, in a loud voice for all to hear, began to mock him. He brought up Quinn, referring to her as the little librarian Eric was slumming it with. He tried to publicly shame her, painting her as a gold digger who had managed to sink her claws into the city's most powerful CEO. He was trying to poison the one pure thing in Eric's life and drag Quinn through the mud. But this time, Eric didn't stay silent. A protective fire ignited in his eyes. He didn't defend his own honor, he fiercely defended hers. In front of the city's elite, Eric turned on Thorne, his voice quiet but ringing with a powerful authority that silenced the entire room. He declared that Quinn Cox had more integrity, more character, and more worth in her little finger than anyone in his entire pretentious social circle, including Thorne himself. It was a stunning public declaration. Eric, the man who lived by discretion and carefully managed his public image, was laying it all on the line for her. He wasn't protecting a secret or an asset, he was protecting the woman he loved. He told the assembled crowd that they wouldn't know real class if it hit them, because they measured worth in dollars, while Quinn measured it in kindness and heart. It was a raw, emotional, and incredibly public defense. Word of the confrontation reached Quinn almost immediately. People from the library who followed the city's gossip columns showed her the articles. She read about how Eric had stood up for her, how he had eviscerated a rival not for a business deal, but for her honor. This wasn't a plot twist, it was proof. It was a public act of redemption that spoke louder than any private apology ever could. It was a truly heartaching moment. Seeing his words in print, knowing he had defended her so fiercely in her absence, finally broke through the last of her defenses. He hadn't just humbled himself in the quiet of her library, he had championed her in the heart of his own world, a world that had previously scorned her. This act of loyalty, of putting her before his own reputation, showed a depth of true love that she could no longer deny. His heart was truly in this. Following his public defense of Quinn, Eric knew he needed to make a gesture that was purely about her and her world, not about him. He wanted to do something significant, something that showed he had been listening, that he understood what truly mattered to her. He saw the library's struggles firsthand: outdated equipment, the leaking roof, the desperate need for new children's programs. So he decided to act, but this time, he would do it the right way. He made a massive, transformative donation to the library, enough to solve all its financial woes for the next decade. But he did it completely anonymously. There was no press release, no plaque with his name on it, no self-congratulatory announcement. He funneled the funds through a series of foundations to ensure that the gift could not be traced back to him. This wasn't about scoring points, it was an act of pure, unadulterated kindness. Quinn was overjoyed when the library board announced the miracle donation from an anonymous benefactor. She saw the immediate impact: new computers being installed, contractors fixing the roof, and the launch of a new literacy program she had dreamed of for years. It was a powerful, positive change for the community she loved so dearly. Her heart swelled with gratitude for this unknown stranger who had saved her beloved library. For weeks, she wondered who this mysterious donor could be. It was a heartaching mystery that brought a new light to the entire neighborhood. In all her speculation, she never once suspected Eric. In her mind, Eric's grand gestures were loud and public. This was quiet and selfless. This act was different. It was a gift given with no expectation of recognition or reward, the truest form of generosity. It was the ultimate surprise. It was only later, through a slip-up by a grateful board member who had a suspicion, that she discovered the truth. He mentioned a name from one of the foundation's preliminary letters, a name she recognized as one of Eric's holding companies. The pieces clicked into place. The anonymous donation, the act of pure redemption that had saved her world, had come from him. He had given her a kingdom and never asked for a crumb of credit. This revelation was the final plot twist for her heart. He hadn't just defended her in public, he had quietly saved her dreams in private. This wasn't the act of a manipulative CEO or a man desperate for forgiveness. This was the act of a man who genuinely loved her and her world. The gesture was so profound, so selfless, it washed away the last vestiges of her anger, leaving only a deep emotional connection in its place. With the truth of his anonymous gift settling in her heart, Quinn finally agreed to talk. Not at the library, not at his office, but on neutral ground, a quiet bench in a park where they had once walked during the early, deceptive days of their relationship. The air was thick with unspoken words, a mixture of past hurt and the potential for a new beginning. This was the conversation that would decide their destiny. Eric didn't start with excuses or grand promises. He just looked at her, his eyes filled with a vulnerability she had never seen before, and he confessed. He told her that his time with her, from the very first moment of their boyfriend-for-hire arrangement, was the only time he felt like his true self. Not the powerful CEO, not the billionaire icon, but just Eric, a man who loved books and quiet conversations. He explained that the lie, while unforgivable, came from a place of desperation. He was so trapped in his identity that he felt a mistaken identity was the only way to find something real. He admitted how wrong he was, how much he had hurt her, and that the shame of his deception was something he would carry forever. It was a raw, honest confession, a plea for understanding rather than forgiveness. It was deeply emotional and heartaching. Quinn listened, truly listened, for the first time without the shield of her anger. She heard the loneliness in his voice, the regret, the genuine love story he was trying to salvage from the wreckage he had created. She saw the man who had defended her honor and saved her library, a man who was desperately trying to prove that his heart was true, even if his methods had been flawed. His redemption felt real. She finally spoke, her voice soft but steady. She told him about the humiliation, the pain of the secret, how his lie had made her question her own judgment. But she also told him that she saw the man he was trying to become. She saw the man who sorted books and the man who stood up for her. She saw the man who gave without needing thanks. She was beginning to see the possibility of an unexpected love, one built on truth this time. The conversation wasn't a magical fix, but it was a powerful start. It was two people laying their broken pieces out on the table, willing to see if they could fit them back together. Eric confessed that he didn't just want her forgiveness, he wanted her. All of her. He wanted the chance to build something real. A true love, free from secrets and lies. The ball was now in her court. The setting for the final act of their story was a major gala, the kind of glittering event Eric usually dreaded. But tonight, he was there with a purpose. He had forsaken a lucrative, companion-touring business deal that was meant to be the centerpiece of the evening. All eyes were on him, the powerful CEO, as he took the stage, but he wasn't there to talk about mergers or profits. He was there to talk about his heart. He looked out at the crowd of investors and socialites, but his eyes found Quinn, who stood nervously near the back, having agreed to come as his friend. In front of everyone, Eric publicly announced that he was walking away from the deal. Gasps rippled through the room. He said that for too long, he had been chasing the wrong kind of value. He spoke of redemption, of learning what was truly important in life. Then, he turned his full attention to Quinn, and the entire room seemed to disappear. He told the story. Not the whole boyfriend-for-hire secret, but a more poetic version. He spoke of meeting someone who showed him what a true love story looked like, someone who had a heart that couldn't be bought. He admitted his own failings, his own mistakes, in front of the entire world, in a powerful, emotional confession. "I once entered into a contract with this woman," he said, his voice ringing with emotion. "And that contract is now over." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. But now he continued, his gaze locked on hers. "I want a real refund." The crowd held its breath, confused. This was a plot twist no one saw coming. What could a billionaire possibly want as a refund from a simple librarian? "I want her heart," he declared, his voice breaking slightly. "In exchange for mine. For a lifetime." It wasn't a proposal whispered in private. It was a grand public declaration of love and commitment. He was forsaking his world of deals and contracts for a partnership of the heart. It was the most unexpected, heart-aching, and romantic gesture. imaginable, a complete surprise to everyone, especially Quinn. Tears streamed down Quinn's face as she realized what was happening. This wasn't a lie or a game. This was real. This was the destiny they had been stumbling towards all along. Eric Owens, the CEO, was laying his soul bare, offering her everything that truly mattered. He wasn't asking for her forgiveness anymore. He was asking for her forever, offering his own in return. The ultimate redemption. The beginning of their true love. And so their incredible love story finds its true beginning. What started with a secret, a boyfriend for hire born from desperation, transformed into a powerful testament to redemption and the undeniable pull of destiny. From the quiet aisles of a library to the glittering stage of a gala, Eric and Quinn's journey reminds us that the heart's path is rarely a straight line. It's a powerful lesson that true love isn't about perfection, but about seeing the truth in someone and choosing to fight for it, no matter the cost. This entire emotional story, from the mistaken identity to the final, heart-aching reunion, was a roller coaster, and we're so glad you came along for the ride. Now we would love to hear from you. What was the one moment in their story that impacted you the most? Was it Quinn's quiet strength when she rejected his gifts, or Eric's fierce public defense of her honor? Let us know everything in the comments below. Tell us, did you expect a different ending for them? Or are you happy with the beautiful Desfacoti final chapter that their story received? Your thoughts and feelings are what make this community so special. If this story of unexpected love and redemption touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, as it truly helps our channel grow. And most importantly, if you haven't already, please follow our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story we have waiting for you. Feel free to explore our older videos for more tales that will capture your heart. Thank you for watching.